Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is M&M Workshop, and our host is going to be Dr. Kettelhut, and I'm delighted to have him as a certified coach with M&M. We have a few other certified coaches on the program, and I'm sure they get a minute or two to talk about their programs. But the goal of M&M is to build a real estate community, an interactive real estate community where we can bring transparency, literacy, and connection to consumers, and bring synergy systems and networks to the professionals. And Coaching Corner is one of our programs that helps us connect people to one another. And our goal is to build a better community. I learned a few months back that a good coach can change a game, a great coach can change a life, and that is by John Wooden, the famous basketball coach. But then we came up with this slogan of our own: a community of great coaches can change a whole community. Coach Kettelhut, thank you so much for being a coach with us. Take it away.
Thanks, Saeed. So before we jump in, let's just take a moment to, how sometimes when you go to a fancy restaurant, you get the sorbet between courses. So we've all just come from the course of the day, and let's just take a moment to imagine you're eating some sorbet. You might want to close your eyes. It helps to close your eyes and just center yourself in your body. Take a moment to just feel the sensation of being in your body. Let go of the thinking and just take a moment to feel the sensation of this moment. Feel your feet on the floor and your butt on the chair. Feel your clothing on your skin. Taste the tastes in your mouth and smell the smells around you. This is a very simple exercise. You can do it at any time to clear the mind, because when your senses are plugged in, it's hard to think, and vice versa. When you're thinking, it's hard to smell the coffee. So just take a moment to be in the sensation of the moment. And you'll notice some thoughts, and just if you can, notice what's on your mind. Unfinished business, that you started and you haven't finished yet, or relationship stuff that you've got when you get home or with your clients. Just notice what is on your mind that you're letting go of so that you can be here in this moment. And let it all just be right there. You'll get to it. It's going to be fine. And let go so that you can be here now. You can open your eyes. So, our topic today is completion. But completion is a big mystery. What the heck does that mean? So we called the workshop Peace of Mind, because what completion is an opportunity and a choice. You have to choose it to release the past and move into the future free from the holds of your mind, right? It has a hold on us with all these things that we haven't finished yet, that we're still thinking about and that we're hoping for the future. So peace of mind is what completion provides. Because completion means putting closure on what has been the reigning context and pattern in your relationships and in your projects. It offers both parties the power from this moment on to work in alignment with your commitments rather than the psychobabble in your mind, right? To work from commitment, from purpose, instead of being frustrated with people or regretting things you did or being upset. You can complete those things, put closure on them, and have peace of mind to move into the rest of your day. So as we proceed here today, I would ask you to take notes specifically on I want you to find 3 things that I bring up today I'm going to talk about a lot of different ways of getting complete, depending on what it is that's going on in your mind. And so I'd like you to jot down at least 3 conversations that you see for yourself out of today's workshop that you want to have. These conversations are, you want to have them with people because they will create peace of mind for you. So as we go through, look for what are those 3 completion conversations that I need to have, and I'll ask you at the end what they are. So when we are practicing getting complete, putting closure on the past so that we can move into the future powerfully, there are 6 intentions that we hold. Let me share my screen with you and show you these. All right, so we just went over what completion is. The 6 intentions of getting complete are to clearly and objectively express what happened in the past. Right? That's the first one. Secondly, take responsibility for the part that you are responsible for. Thirdly, forgive, apologize, and let go. Fourth, declare yourself and the situation complete. Like you need to make a declaration, like we had to declare we were independent from England, right? Until you do, there's still some ambiguity there. Fifth is to clarify next steps and actions from this new level of commitment, freedom, and power that you get out of completion. And 6, experience new possibilities for the future. Now, I'm going to post these in my group on the M&M site. So if you're not a member of my group, you can go there after today's workshop, become a member, and these will be posted there so that you can review them and use them going forward. Okay, so let's jump in. Our first intention when we're working toward completion is to clearly express the past. So this is really the crux of it, actually. The crux of completion is to clearly express what has been. This sets the past apart from now and from anything that's going to happen going forward. That's the basic move of completion. So clearly express what has been so that you can set that apart from what's happening now and what's going to happen going forward. So here's a couple examples. I found myself saying this one time. I recognized that I was impatient with the folks you referred me to and angry with you that they weren't up to speed on property specs. I want you to know that I won't ever let that happen again. Going forward, I'll always assume that the customer needs to be brought up to speed from the beginning, right? Cleaned up the past, set the pace for the future. Here's another example. Up until now, we've always hired the cheapest help with our bookkeeping, but we've spent a lot of money and time and effort training those bookkeepers, retaining them and firing them and rehiring and training again. From now on, I say we invest in good bookkeeping help, right? There's the past, and here's what you can expect in the future. So to clearly express the past, you need to be responsible only for what you have done or said, right? You're not responsible for other people's thoughts. You might think you are. You're always trying to change other people's thoughts, but you're actually not. You're also not responsible for externalities like the weather, right? Other people's thoughts are like the weather to you, right? You have to get through them, but you're not responsible for it. You are, however, 100% responsible for the experiences that you have and share with others. You're 100% responsible for that. So the key to stating what happened in the past that allows you to leave it behind is to be transparent. Now, you've used that word yourself many times. Here's a new definition for you. Transparent means to listen to yourself objectively, as if you were another person. right? To communicate explicitly what you hear going on inside you. That's being transparent. Here's an example. Oh, I just got triggered by what you said. And I know this discussion that we're having is going to be much more productive if I go cool off for a minute before we continue, right? That's being transparent. Here's another example. I recognize I've been spending a quarter of my waking hours commuting downtown to work, right? You're transparent to yourself. You're seeing your own thoughts. Okay. That's the first intention. Now, that might have brought up something that you need to complete with yourself or somebody else or with your circumstances. If so, write that down. That's one of the three that you're going to collect over the next hour. Second intention of completion is to take responsibility for what you are responsible for. So once you stop taking, and this is important, once you stop taking your own actions and your own thoughts so darn personally, you can get on with whatever truly needs your attention. I think this is a mark of a powerful person. If you look at the people who you admire, they're like really in positions of power, they don't relate to their own thoughts personally. They're like the weather, their own thoughts. And so when you can objectify your behavior, it gives you the ability to choose your thoughts and your behaviors and choose the ones that are best, as opposed to the ones that you're stuck to from childhood or because you hold a grudge or something like that. When you identify with those knee-jerk thoughts, in other words, take things personally, you have a lot fewer options of how to move forward, right? Like if I just say, don't talk to me about that subject, that doesn't open up anything. It shuts things down. Or I get angry every time you say those things. Like, have you heard yourself ever saying that to your spouse or even to a colleague? Right? That just shuts things down. This is why being transparent is so important. You fearlessly expose your internal machinations through courageous communication. Explain those thoughts, that they're not yours or they're not what you're really committed to. Say that, make that transparent, and then align with your highest purpose in your words and your deeds going forward. As long as you have something you can't let others see, your freedom is limited, right? You've got to put on a show. But exposing what is really going on inside you sets you and the other person free. So to get transparent and free from the past, look at yourself without praise or blame, right? You don't have an ego contest with yourself. Notice and communicate your bodily sensations and what they mean to you, your emotions, right? So that you can set them aside. All that self-talk and prejudging people. And just by acknowledging these things, what's actually going on inside you, you put it in the past so that you can change and move forward in a different way. So here's a kind of embarrassing example. When I first left the academic world, which was 25 years ago, so it's been a while, I harbored the belief that business people were mostly superficial and ego-driven. That's what I thought coming out of academia, right? I've since learned better. But once I heard that I was actually thinking that thought, I became transparent to myself. I shared it with a client who I trusted. And she's actually a very deep thinker and a very generous person, not superficial and ego-driven at all. And I thanked her for helping me see the prejudice that I was carrying around and that it wasn't true, right? I completed that prejudice and left it in the past. For the sake of completing things, you want to stay focused on uncovering what's actually there inside you. When you feel vulnerable or unable to be honest, this is a sign that you have energy tied up with some false belief, probably unconsciously, and it's polluting your choices. You're not really thinking straight. You're working through and around that. Your internal critic is just making it harder for you to be transparent and fully there in the moment. So it's thoughts, just to give you a sense, it's thoughts like, well, if they really knew me, they wouldn't want to do this deal with me. Or, right, that's the self-talk. Or I can't say what I really think here because it might hurt somebody's feelings. Right? You're editing. It's all inside you. Now we all have things that we hide at times, of course. These fears can be dispelled though. I think it starts with recognizing there's really no point in blaming yourself or anybody else, or in trying to get yourself to stop having these thoughts and being afraid. Don't try and stop it. But when you name what it is that's going on, let's say it's that fear inside you, then you don't identify with it anymore, and you can avert the problems entailed by it. Often you realize that fear has no substance. Once you spit it out, you see like, oh gosh, why was I afraid of that? This happens all the time in my coaching calls with people. I say, what are you afraid of? And they say, well, that she's going to hurt me. Well, she knows she's not going to hurt you. That's true. She's not. So, for instance, that fear that was underlying my prejudice that business people are superficial and selfish, that Jen helped me expose to the light of awareness, was a fear that I would become superficial and selfish myself, right? That was the underlying fear. And once I saw that, I knew that wasn't going to happen. Right? So notice that it took two of us, though, to complete on that judgment, to put closure on my prejudice. So you often do need to be in conversation. So just 5 years ago, a client of mine, her name's Nikki, she intimated to me that she didn't even want to bring up the fact that she felt like she was constantly being put down by her business partner. She was afraid that if she brought it up, he'd get mad and the relationship would suffer and the business would follow suit. It was just all way too risky. So, it remained incomplete for both of them. Turns out his experience was that she was more competent than he is. So he was protecting himself from exposure as the weaker player by putting her down all the time. Now, once this got surfaced and they became aware of it and they talked about it, they put closure on that way of relating to each other, and they were free to choose authentically how to be in partnership going forward. Nikki and her business partner now run a very successful multi-million-dollar business together. So it just goes to show, when you complete on these notions that don't work anymore, anything is possible. It really opens the door to your freedom and power. Taking responsibility for completion sometimes means that you have to acknowledge that it was your interpretation of the other person's words or actions that caused your reaction, right? It wasn't what they actually meant or what they actually did. It was the way you interpreted it. Here's an example. When I was growing up, my dad had nothing but the best intentions when he hired a housekeeper as a gift from my mother, right? Very good intentions. But my mom thought that my dad was trying to say that she wasn't a good housekeeper. She misinterpreted his actions, right? Then she had to get complete. She had to put closure on the notion that she was poor at keeping house. And when she finally recognized that, she thanked my dad for hiring the housekeeper and enjoyed having somebody else clean the house for her. What about those times when the challenge really seems to be on somebody, it's somebody else's responsibility? It's not your responsibility, right? Say you're managing a team and you feel like you're at the mercy of everybody else's inabilities. she's not good enough, he's not doing what he's supposed to, they're not on time, blah blah blah. Ask yourself, have I taken the time and mustered up the courage to deliver some empowering critical feedback here? Or am I just sitting on my laurels and complaining? Can you see how restricting the flow of productivity by clinging to your own judgments of these folks is not helping? Right? How often do you hear yourself say, gosh, I just have to do it myself? Right? Isn't all this just a cover up for your inability to speak up in an effective way? Let's move on to the third intention. The third intention of completion is to forgive, apologize, and let go. Let's look at apologies and forgiving. These are very special kinds of communication. They're not like, just chit chat. They're very powerful. And so they work in a certain way when they're being used effectively. The first thing you want to note about apologizing, and this might be another area where you see somebody who you need to apologize to. And this is something that we learned in a profound way through the Me Too movement, is that you can't say, I'm sorry, but that doesn't work. The but nullifies all the power of saying, I'm sorry. Apologies have to be whole hog, right? Or they have no effect. So it's, I'm sorry that I hurt you, period. No excuses, no explanations, no ifs, ands, or buts. I understand, you guys, it's tough to admit you've wronged somebody. It's very tough because you don't want to do that. I love that about you. There's a strong sense to want to talk it away, explain it, excuse it. You waste your time doing so. Instead, just bathe in the vulnerability. Let it wash over you when you apologize. Let your whole being get cleansed through the process so you can get back into your full power again. The second thing to note about apologies, the power of language is such that when you say, I'm sorry, it can feel as though you're identifying yourself as some sort of miserable wretch, as in, he's a sorry character. So, especially if you say, I'm sorry, like in that way. Well, okay, that's true. You do have to make yourself vulnerable in order to apologize effectively. That's true. But you don't need to reduce yourself to a sorry state. If you don't want to say the word sorry, then say, I apologize, or say, forgive me, or say, I deeply regret, right? Find another way, but do it. Choose the formulation that best restores wholeness between you and the other person. Okay, let's look at forgiveness now. Again, these are very special forms of communication, but they move things forward. The power of forgiveness works really differently from the way, at least I tend to think about it. If you're like me, you think first and foremost of the effect of forgiveness on the one who's being forgiven, right? So she forgave him, so he's off the hook. Or they forgave the loan, so now we don't have to pay them back. While it is true that the forgivee is freed up by the forgiver's forgiveness, that's true. The forgiver, nevertheless, experiences a freedom 10 times that of the forgivee. My friend Johnny is fond of saying forgiveness is forgiving you your life back. In fact, look right now. Throughout your life, all of your professional and private relationships, whom are you holding in contempt that you could forgive? Who owes you money that you could forgive? who owes you an apology or a thank you, and you could forgive them for that. Against whom are you holding a grudge? You could forgive them for. Go clean this up with them. Tell them you realize you've been putting this between you and them. And then, once you restore that wholeness in your connection to them, you can tell them in what fresh light you will relate to them going forward. So, for example, I admit I've been angry with you and avoiding you ever since you gave me that challenge last Thursday. I just didn't know what to say about it till now. I want you to know that I accept and I appreciate that challenge and I'm taking it on. Right? You forgive them for the challenge and then you set the future. Here's another example. Thank you for remembering that you still owe me for that personal loan I gave you last summer. At this point, I'd like to forgive the loan. So you no longer need to be concerned with yourself about paying me back. I know the money went to a good cause. That's all that matters to me. If anything, I request that you pay it forward at some point. Forgive the loan, set the future. All right, the fourth intention of completion. We're getting there. There are only 6. And then I'm going to give you a worksheet to know how to walk through these conversations. So don't worry, you don't have to remember all this. I'm also going to give you a worksheet that just sets it out in 9 steps. And I'll give you, that's how we'll close this, go over the worksheet. But the fourth intention you want to hold when you go to complete is to declare yourself complete. This is pretty simple, but it's very important. If you don't declare it, there's ambiguity. In your journal, in a creative expression, or verbally to another person, make a declaration of completion. It might sound like, thank you for the apology. That completes the matter for me. Right? Declare it complete. Or here's another example. I recognize that we were both just doing the best we could and that there was a misunderstanding, and that leaves me complete to say that with what happened. Right? You have to declare it complete. That's the power of your word right there at work. If you don't declare it, it kind of hangs around. You know, at the end of every game, when every member of the home team shakes hands with every member of the opposite team, right? That's completion. Or when a motion has been discussed in a meeting, voted on, no objections found, and the majority's vote takes precedent, and the moderator of the meeting declares motion carried. That's completion. These declarations make a difference. Step or intention number 5 is to lay out the next steps. Now that you're complete with the past, what are the next steps going forward? They should look a little bit different from the past. They should look very different from the past. Because these next steps, they're imbued with you can come from commitment rather than psychobabble. You can come from freedom rather than attachment. You can come from power rather than being limited in your thinking. So for example, now that I've delegated processing and servicing clients, I'm making a list of prospects so I can go make rain. Right? That's my next step. Make a list of prospects because I delegated all that other stuff. I know more than, at least 3 couples who, once they did this completion process about the tensions in their marriage, they renewed their wedding vows with vigor. So that was their next step, was to go back to church and get married again. 6th intention of completion is to sense these new possibilities that arise once you've completed the past. One of the best barometers, in fact, of sensing whether or not you truly have arrived at completion is to notice how new possibilities for the future have begun to snap, crackle, pop in your mind. This sixth and last fundamental intention of completion is to enjoy the experience of these new possibilities that show up for the future once you've gotten complete. If you find yourself suddenly unburdened by the past and instead naturally looking to the future, to what presents itself as next for you, then this is a sure sign that the process of completion has indeed taken place. Isn't this one of the reasons why we get so giddy when we first go into business for ourselves? We're so excited to have all these new wonderful possibilities in front of us. Or consider how empowering it is to be able to say to a business partner, boy, thank goodness we're no longer relating to each other with suspicion or codependence or one-upmanship, right? Thank goodness we completed that. Right? It opens things up for the future. Imagine waking up in a business partnership that is no longer about quarreling and keeping tabs, but instead, from this moment on of completion, it's about mutual admiration and collaboration. I'm gonna skip. I have a long example here, but I'm gonna skip it for the sake of time and go right to I'll just say what it's about. So I had this client, Sally, and she had trouble breaking through the ceiling for women in the industry. And she was underappreciated by the real estate company she worked for anyway. And I asked her to go put closure on with her dad, because that's where these issues come from. I'm skipping a lot of coaching training here to tell you that, but anyway. And she did. She talked to her dad, and her dad was like, well, I just thought you were a little girl and I needed to protect you. So that's why I treated you different from your brothers. Oh, they both got closure out of his recognizing that. And then she went on to become the top producer for her company, because that ceiling, the girls are different, had been broken, had been completed, actually. Okay, so let me show you this next slide. This is of the completion worksheet, which I will also post in my group. So if you weren't here at the beginning, if you join my group on the M&M site, moreandmorenetwork.com, I will post both the agenda for today and this worksheet. So you notice the first thing here, can you see that, by the way? Is everybody seeing that?
Not yet, coach. You have to share it.
Oh, I didn't share it, darn it. Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
There you go. So the first thing you have to do when you go to have a conversation for completion is to state it succinctly. What is the thing that you're completing? Right? Whether it's an issue with a person or a problem in your business or a situation at home, state it succinctly so we know what we're working on. And so number one is you have to ask yourself, first of all, am I willing to be complete with this? Right? You could walk through this whole process, and if you're really not open-hearted enough to be willing to let this go, it won't. So ask yourself first, am I willing to be complete with this? And if not, then don't go on to steps 2 through 9. Right? Wait until you're willing. That's got to be there. Secondly, what are the thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations that you notice when you anticipate letting go of this thing that needs completion? Like, like you'll feel jitters in your stomach or a headache or nervous, right? You'll notice that, and that's a clue that you need, what there is to look at, what needs to get talked about. Thirdly, ask yourself where you get stopped. Like, why is it that I haven't let go of this? What have I been hanging on to about it? What is my reluctance around letting go of this? Right? That gets your attention right where it needs to be. Because completion doesn't mean go on talking for an hour about the thing. It means getting to the heart of the matter. What is it that stops you from letting this go? So that can be addressed and left behind. Let's look at number 4 here. And I'm going to go back to my notes. Number 4 is, what is there to give up or let go of in order to have completion? And are you going to give it up? So you might need to give up a certain image of yourself. I'm a tough guy. I'm not going to get vulnerable here. Or you might need to let go of your expectations of others. Yeah, why did I think that she'd be able to get this report done in 72 hours? It's a 2-week report. You might need to give up some money or position. You might need to let go of your pride or of a grudge you hold. Those are the types of things. Number 5 on the worksheet says, well, what, if anything, have you accomplished during this time that you're now completing on, right? This is where you get to acknowledge what good did come out of the thing that you're putting closure on. So let's look at this. This is an important one. This is about acknowledgement. We're going to look at acknowledging 4 different things. What's so, the facts, your emotions, the accomplishments, and the other person's essential nature. So that'll be clear when we get to it. One of the coaching companies that I co-founded back in the aught years, 2000s, was trying to drum up business by traveling to our clients' offices all across the country and doing these 3-hour workshops called Vision to Reality. And we thought, if we could do these, be introduced by our clients to their people, right? Be face to face with the new people, that we would increase our sales of our main product, which was a 9-month program. Well, when the impact to our bottom line was negligible out of doing these workshops, I said, well, we just have to do more workshops, right? Meet more people. Well, turns out the travel expenses grew and the sales didn't. So there came a moment where we had to acknowledge that something about the traveling workshop method wasn't working. We needed to stop doing those or go broke. So all it takes sometimes to make a change for the better is a simple acknowledgement of what's not working. And as the leader, that's you, as the leader, it's up to you to declare the breakdown. Even if you don't look good doing so, sometimes you have to say, you know what? I don't know if it's me or you or what, but this is not working. Let's stop. Everybody take a new perspective. We need to find another way forward here. What about emotions? Acknowledging emotions. So this is an actual conversation for an actual coaching call. My client Bess calls up and she says, listen, doc, she's all in a panic. I don't know if I have time for this coaching session today. I got so much to do. Okay, I hear you, Bess. So besides meeting these deadlines, what's the underlying fear here? I could hear she was scared to death. Well, I have to finish this report before 5. She said, but that's not the main thing. She's slurring her words. She's so nervous. I'm still in my probationary period. And if they don't see the worth in shifting all these resources and energy the way I suggest they should, my chances of keeping this position are pretty slim. And then she got really serious. She said, I had 2 kids to support. I don't know if the CEO, I didn't know the CEO and the president were going to be so stuck in the mud. I told her, I understand what you're talking about. And then I said, can I ask you a question? Do you know for sure that the CFO and the president disagree with you? No, she said. Well, okay. So your defensiveness here, your suspicion of them are based on a projection that they're going to disagree with you and that you'll be out of a job because of it. Is that right? Well, yeah, she said, but she quickly added, there's a lot at stake here. I said, yes, exactly. In fact, you're projecting failure into a really important conversation, aren't you? Wow, you're right, she said. And in fact, now that I see this is Bess talking, I can see that my defensiveness and suspicion are only bound to provoke their differing with me and not wanting to work with me. Exactly. Which is to say, I told her, you're poised to produce the opposite of the result you want. You see, sometimes the most important thing to pay attention to is the basic quality of the experience you're having, your emotional content. And once you acknowledge it, it changes. That's what happened in that conversation. Now, you all know about acknowledging accomplishments, so I won't go into that. You know, that's like saying, congratulations, you did a good job, or wow, you produced $1 million. That's amazing, right? Okay, let's move on to acknowledging people. So we've seen that when you acknowledge what's so, or acknowledge an emotion, it serves to change it, right? Things change after that. But works the other way around with people. So take note. Acknowledging a person or the essence of what they've said or did, you reinforce that quality. You make them want to bring it forward more often. So say you know your son sees a little old lady dropped her handkerchief in the street, and he runs over, picks it up, and gives it back to the little old lady. So, right? So you acknowledge your son. You say, that was a great thing that you did, son. Thank you for being so thoughtful. Right? You can bet that your son is going to be on the lookout from that moment on for opportunities to do something similar in the future, because he wants that pat on the back. And it's in this sense that when you acknowledge a human being, you actually create a future for them, because they want to do more of that, because it felt good. Now, you have to be present, you have to notice what's going on, and you have to be vulnerable to name that quality. So let me give you 2 examples here. Joe, I appreciate how you always know exactly how to bottom line things so that our council meetings don't get bogged down, but instead you move them forward. Thank you for your concision and leadership, right? Name those qualities in that person that were essential to the difference they made. Here's another one. Michelle, you and I have been through some really tough times together, but I admire the way you always keep an even keel, right? Get right to the essence of who she is for you. I'll just give you one last quick example here. No, I'm going to skip it. We don't have time. Worksheet item number 6. If you're just going down the worksheet to do a completion conversation, number 6 says what other declarations you want to make, right? Like, now that we've completed this marketing campaign, let's never use mailers again, right? Declaration. Or I'm blocking off Fridays going forward for returning calls and finishing paperwork. Declaration. I promise I will always consult with you on any transactions over $2 million. Declaration. The 7th step of the worksheet says what tools or skills or possibilities are available to you now that weren't before. And look and see, right? As office manager, here's an example. As office manager, you get your real estate license. So you can get into more details in the coordinating of client relations, and you get paid more too, right? That's a new possibility that showed up out of getting complete with just being the office manager. 8, what do you have to say to be complete, right? There might be something that needs to be said. So I won't, and here's again a couple of examples. I'm not going to be complete with this until all my wait, what did I write here? I won't be fully complete until I that my staff for all their until I thank my staff for all their support, right? That might be the communication that really closes things off, is to thank the other person for getting complete with you. Or it might be something like, I need to admit that I was naive going into this. Or I have to say I couldn't have done it without you, right? These are the last things that you say to really put it to bed. And the last item on the worksheet, which you will get, is what are your next actions? What action, now that you've got a new future in front of you, what action are you going to take in that new future? And one of the most important things that comes out here is making requests. So I want to spend just a moment on making requests, because it's another very special form of communication. Here's what's interesting about requests. There are 3 different appropriate responses possible on the part of the person who's being requested of, on the requestee, right? If you say, would you please get me a glass of water? Well, the person could say, oh, sure, I accept your request. I'll get the glass of water. Or they could say, I decline the request. I'm not getting you a glass of water. But there's a third possibility. I have a counter offer. How about, I'll get you a glass of water if you get me a hot dog, right? Counter offer is always the third possibility when somebody requests something of you. This is beautiful because it means that when you make a request of someone, you don't need to put on any pressure. After all, they are free to decline or to make a counter offer. And if the requestee has mixed feelings, right? She wants to say yes in part, but wants to say no on the other side. Well, then they can make a counter offer, right? I can't drive you all the way to where you need me to drive you to, but I'd be happy to drop you off at the bus station so you can catch the bus there. Counter offer. Or I can't drive you all the way, but I'd like to give you something to eat on your journey, right? Something as a counter offer to show your support, but to decline the request. Counter offers are a brilliant way to look for win-wins. Okay, so now I want to ask you, what are the 3 completion conversations you've seen for yourself out of this workshop that you're going to go take care of right now? Who would like to share? Where did you notice you need to go have a completion conversation?
I can start if nobody else wants to. I had an issue with my own brother once. Okay. And it was just an over stupid joke. Okay. He jokes with me, I joke back with him, but he gets offended.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He cannot take a joke, although he thought that my joke was over limit. But if I bring it up to his attention, he's done those jokes with me 10 times worse.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Right. Right.
So
So what will you say to get complete?
I don't know. I don't know because I have tried, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
tried to get complete with this guy, my own brother. I said, look, this is stupid that you and I are upset with each other over a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a hard time letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
And my entire family, because I'm the younger of the entire family, said, well, you got to apologize. I said, no, I shouldn't apologize because we go back and forth. It wasn't anything intentional. It wasn't anything to hurt anyone. It was just a stupid joke. He jokes, I joke, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
How do you fix this? Now, obviously, it's over as it's been years ago, right?
Yeah.
How do you fix a situation like this?
Well, there are 2 things that I hear right off the bat, and one is to ask him what's important, like dig deeper and find out like why is this important to him, and then address that why this is
I
important.
did. I did, coach. I addressed it. He took my joke the wrong way, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he thought I was insulting his family. And I
Mhm.
said, think, how stupid would you be? Why would I want to insult your family? Your family is my family.
So
Right?
that's like an apology with a but.
I
That's
didn't apologize to him at the time. I didn't.
um,
I wanted to clear things up. I said, look, why are you upset with me? And then he wouldn't talk back.
mhm,
Other family members told me that because he thinks you insulted his family.
mhm.
I confronted him. I said, look, why would I have a reason? Why would I want to insult your freaking
Right,
family?
right.
Your family is my family, right? And then he would go into silence. He would never respond back.
Mhm.
Okay. And then Edward puts the pressure on me to apologize to him. I said, look, I don't have a problem apologizing, but what I've done, he's done it 10 times worse to me.
There's the but right there, right? Yeah, I know these are tricky, and you might have to be complete without him, right? And sometimes that's the very thing that gets the other person to be complete. If you still, if you haven't gotten like that sense of, okay, I know that I've done all that I can, and I'm sorry it bothers him, but I'm done, then that might trigger something in him. But there's still, I still, you don't think that you should have to apologize, and there's all these, if you just understood me, I hear Saeed saying, right, that it's got to be whole hog. It's got to be, you're right, absolutely. I bow down to you. I am nothing but an apology at your feet. It has to be complete, or else it goes on. And this is a beautiful example.
But this is wrong, though. I
It
mean,
is wrong. It is wrong.
wrong. I mean, if you're, first and foremost, if you're friends and family and brothers, uh, great, but the key is if you're upset, you gotta let it go.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't want to let it go, so be it. I can't say, but again, this is years ago. Everything got,
Yeah. Well,
uh,
it still bothers both of you. I mean, if you're obviously in a more objective place than he is, but still it bothers you. And so, we have to really get down to the absolute bottom of the barrel with these things, or they don't get complete.
mhm,
And
yeah,
I understand. I have those kinds of things. Family is the worst place for this stuff.
yeah.
Right. So Dr. Martin, is it okay sometimes to apologize just to get over it, even though you don't want to? If there's a standstill and you just say, you know what, I'm gonna bite the bullet, I'm gonna be the bigger person, I'm just gonna go ahead and apologize. Although deep down in my soul and spirit, I'm thinking I shouldn't have to apologize.
Well, I don't know the example, but
But I'm talking about Saeed's example.
oh, I see. Well, in that example, I'm not convinced that he shouldn't apologize.
Okay.
I think you want to get in touch with that deep down in your soul that does see that you need to apologize.
Yeah, but
I,
I
I
apologize with a but, coach. I did apologize with a but. I said, look, I'm sorry if I hurt you, but when you joke around, you do it 10 times worse. So you should expect, you know, a punch back, right?
yeah. So that you see that it just goes on, and you just volleyed
Yeah.
it. You just volleyed the ball. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's the way these things work. I mean, I'm not saying that you should do anything. I'm just saying this is how apologies
I
work.
get it. I get it.
yeah. I'm in a situation with my sister, same thing. She's trying to boil it down to one thing, like in Saeed's case, right? It's this joke, but there's a lot more to it than that. In
Yeah.
my sister's, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
There's years and years of things between her and I.
Yeah.
And I told her one time, I said, I hate to say this, but you're the only person I have a problem with in the whole world.
Uh-huh.
You really are the only person that has a problem with me, and I have a problem that I know of. Maybe I don't know of it, but and she couldn't get over it.
Do
And
you want, is that something that you would like to be free of?
I absolutely, but I don't. I'm in Saeed's shoes. I'm sticking to my guns on this one. because I'm right. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean,
Right.
she owes me a lot of money, and I'm not even going to go in there.
There's
And
a there is a there's a there's a guy on YouTube. I'm sorry, I don't have his name handy, but he's a coach, a big shot coach, and he has this saying. He says, "You get to choose in life. You get to either be right, or you get to be connected. If you're right, you're not connected, and if you're connected, then you don't get to be right."
But sometimes don't want to be connected if they don't want to be, if you're, again, in my opinion.
Simon Simic. I think that's the guy. Simon.
He's very good.
He
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
He's excellent. He's excellent.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing, like if you want to clean it up with your sister and you want her to clean it up with you, then you have to go in and you have to calmly say, like, what, I know I got stuff to let go of, and you probably got stuff to let go of too about me. Let's talk it out and get back to love. You just have to suggest that's a possibility in itself, and then start to.
I've been there. I've been there. My wife is like, "Really, we're doing this again?" And we would go, and then it would get. She's just, I forget the word, but or the type of person that her personality is. But this goes all the way back to, I was, you talk about getting personal. I was a surprise to my parents. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister was already 9 years old when I was born.
Oh,
Yeah. And this, my sister-in-law put this one together, and she's like, she lost a lot of attention when old Mikey came around.
yeah.
And
I
that goes all the way back, man.
I understand very well that kind of dynamic. I've been in it myself. And my mom suffered that way. Her sister was 9 years older than her. So sometimes, as I suggested to Saeed, you have to get complete in yourself, that's not going to bother you, right? She is who she is. I love her, even though she doesn't love me, right? That unconditional place.
Absolutely.
If you can get to that, that might be the best that you get in this life.
I think so. And she walks around in a huff and a puff, and I'm a very content person.
Awesome.
And I'm sorry that she is drinking the poison trying to kill me,
Sometimes, Mike, that is what it takes, because when and this might happen with your sister, like some people are so dug in that it won't happen. But like in business, this has happened to me many times where I gave it up, and I knew that they had a grudge, and I just gave it up, and I got complete in myself, and they could feel that I was no longer bothered.
Yes.
So they reflected, like, what's up with us that we can't let this go? And then they came back to me and apologized.
I love that example. I love that example. And yeah, I don't walk around in a huff and a puff and a grudge.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to go make myself a drink in a few minutes, and I'm fine.
Very good. Make me one too.
Well, thanks for this, Martin. This has been, I've been glued to this phone here. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah. Good to hear. Glad it was useful.
Cheers.
Anything else from?
What I really liked was the counter offer.
Yes.
But sometimes, we don't have time to do stuff, and people just assume that you can do it, or you've done it in a past form. But now you're at a different place, a different space where you just don't have that time, or you just don't do it anymore. So the counter offer really, like you said, shows support, but it's a win-win.
Exactly.
I can, I can't take you there, but I can take you somewhere close to there where you can get another way to there.
Exactly.
So,
right.
So you're not saying no to them, but you're not saying yes to them.
Right. I had a woman, I used to coach her. She lives in Aurora, which is like 30 miles from here, and she wanted me to come down and be part of this event she's having today. I said, no, but I'll send you some money to support the cause. And she was totally happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, money trumps all, right? Especially when it's a cause or an event or whatever it is. Money just trumps.
Yeah, it's good to keep that counter or that third possibility in mind.
Yeah.
I think you should
Yeah.
have stopped recording this, Mark, Coach, so you don't bring out all our personal issues here.